soon. They never came back. The ship sank just off the coast of Essex in shallow waters. Luckily, the crew was rescued. But the Me Amigo, Radio Caroline's soul for over a decade, was gone. Legacy. To this day, Me Amigo is remembered as a symbol of defiance. She wasn't flashy, she wasn't modern, but she carried the voice of a generation. People who listened to her as teens still talk about sneaking radios under their pillows, hearing the waves crash in the background of the DJ's voices and feeling like they were part of something rebellious. Want to dive into some of the personalities on board or the rivalries between pirate stations? There's a lot more where this came from. Deeper into the world of pirate radio legends, the people behind the mics and the rivalries on the sea. Think of it like rockstar DJs, Cold War tactics, stormy seas. The personalities aboard Me Amigo and beyond. Johnny Walker, one of the most famous DJs on Radio Caroline South. Walker had a laid-back style and a rebellious streak. He became a hero to young listeners by refusing to shut down when the British government banned offshore radio in 1967. Instead of complying, he broadcast a speech live, slamming the law, and saying Caroline would keep going. Total pirate energy. He later became a top name on the BBC, but that rebellious heart never faded. Before he was a BBC legend, Blackburn started on Radio Caroline. His charm and cheesy jokes were huge hits with listeners. He later moved to Radio London, Caroline's big rival, more on that in a sec, causing some fans to call him a defector. Drama! Admiral Robbie Dale! Charismatic, bold, and completely devoted to pirate radio, Robbie Dale was one of the main voices that kept Caroline alive after the 1967 crackdown. His voice was Radio Caroline to many fans, and he stuck with the ship through thick and thin. Pirate rivalries, Caroline versus Big Up. Radio Caroline was the pioneer, but soon it faced stiff competition from Radio London, known as Big L. Radio London had better equipment, smoother American-style programming, a tight professional schedule. Radio Caroline, meanwhile, had grit, heart, chaos, and a whole lot of rock and roll. Listeners would argue over which was better, kind of like a musical Coke versus Pepsi. DJs even threw shade at each other on air, subtly or not so subtly, adding to the sense that this wasn't just radio, it was a battle for the soul of pop culture. Life at sea! Brotherhood and mayhem, DJs lived together in tiny cabins, often with rats, seasickness and broken gear. Supplies had to be smuggled out to the ships by tender. Storms could last for days, and boredom was just as dangerous as waves. But for many DJs, this was the best time of their lives. They weren't just playing records, they were part of a revolution. One story says that when Radio Caroline North lost power during a storm, the DJs kept broadcasting using car batteries they hauled onto the deck. That's how badly they didn't want to go off air. Want the scoop on what happened after Me Amigo sank? There's a whole second act involving another ship, and even a resurrection. Love it, you're in deep now. Let's talk about what happened after Me Amigo sank, because Radio Caroline didn't go down with the ship. Like any good pirate tale, there's a comeback, a new ship, and an even wilder fight to stay alive. The resurrection. Enter the Ross Revenge. After Me Amigo sank in 1980, Radio Caroline went dark, but behind the scenes, founder Ronan O'Rahilly wasn't done. In 1983, he acquired a giant Icelandic trawler, renamed it the Ross Revenge, and began the ultimate pirate radio reboot. This new ship was massive, more than double the size of Me Amigo, and had one of the tallest masts ever placed on a ship. around 300 feet high. It was a beast built to survive storms and crank out signal strength like never before. By August 1983, Radio Caroline was back on air, once again broadcasting from international waters, playing rock and album tracks you couldn't hear anywhere else.
The battle years.
The 1980s weren't smooth sailing. Here's just some of the chaos. 1. The Dutch raid, 1989. In one of the wildest moments in pirate radio history, the Dutch government, yes, another country, sent actual armed commandos to storm the Ross Revenge in 1989. They boarded the ship at sea, smashed the equipment and shut everything down. Why? Because Caroline had been helping a Dutch station called Radio Monique, and the Dutch authorities had finally had enough. It was like a scene from a Cold War thriller, except instead of missiles, it was microphones. Part 2. The mast collapsed 1987, that massive antenna tower. It collapsed in a huge storm in 1987, nearly killing crew members and cutting off broadcasts for weeks. They kept going with a makeshift antenna, held up by ropes, literally lashed to the deck. The legend only grew stronger. Today, from outlaw to icon, after decades of dodging laws, storms and navies, Radio Caroline finally became legal. In 2017, the UK government granted it a community radio licence. Today, it broadcasts both online and via AM from the Ross Revenge, which is still afloat and lovingly restored by volunteers. The ship is now a living museum. You can even visit her, walk the decks, and see the old studio gear that once defied governments and changed the airwaves. It's an ultimate outlaw story. A bunch of music lovers on the sea, taking on governments and corporate radio, and winning in their own way. Want a weird side story? There's a rumour that David Bowie once tried to buy into a pirate station. Or I could tell you about the pirate queen of Radio Caroline, Sammy, the ship's cat. Radio voice fading in over the sound of waves and distant guitars. And that's a wrap tonight's voyage across the airwaves, broadcasting live on 69 to 15 kHz upper sideband. To everyone tuning in under the covers, out on the waves, or from the shadows of the dial, thank you. You're the heartbeat that keeps this pirate ship sailing. Until next time, keep your radios warm, your frequencies locked, and your spirit loud. This is Radio Free Spirit, signing off for now. Signal fades with echoing jingle and the